So Nicole Kidman has a new TV show, and people were turning it off after one episode. Say no more, that's where I come in. Yes, I will watch Scarpetta, so you don't have to. Nicole Kidman has been described as TV's hardest working A-lister, and I concur. She started her career in 1983, and there's only been 1 year where a project of hers has not come out, and that was in 1984. She didn't have a movie come out in 1994 either, but she did some TV. It's like she's becoming the Ryan Murphy of acting. Or is Ryan Murphy the Nicole Kidman of directing? That has to be my stupidest take ever. I say this with all the admiration in the world for her work. She may need a holiday, or at least a new agent, because these last few TV shows that she's been on, it's not been great. And there's one specific one, Lioness Special Ops. Oh, I could go on for hours about that TV show, such as what in the propaganda are you doing, Nicole? But today's about Scarpetta. Where do I even begin with Scarpetta? It's a TV show adaptation of a series of books, and they tried to do it in the 90s with Demi Moore attached to play Scarpetta, and then in the 2000s with Angelina Jolie attached to play Scarpetta. And then eventually they got to it in the 2020s, and I wish they hadn't. I haven't read the books, so I'm not going to be comparing source material to show. I just hope that the show is not a faithful adaptation of the novel, because it's not great. Virginia's chief medical officer, Kay Scarpetta, is called to a crime scene of a naked woman who was killed in a horrific manner. 28 years in the past, 1998, we follow a young Scarpetta investigating a similar killer who leaves glittery residue in his victims. The series jumps back and forth between timelines, a real intense whodunit murder mystery, or two whodunit murder mysteries, if you will, and the end result is... what? They frame these two timelines as being highly connected, but as the show progresses, you realize the connection is weaker and weaker until the conclusion has you wondering why they even connected these two stories in the first place. Why? But more so than the plot's inability to come together full circle, it really is just the jumbling mess that is the stitching of several different plot points that belong in different shows, but ended up here by mistake. 3D printed organs falling from space, Jamie Lee Curtis playing another teenager on crack, and perhaps the worst of all, life with the AI chatbot of my dead wife. I shouldn't be laughing. There's a character in the show that talks to an AI of her dead wife. It is revealed that before her wife died, she was working on this AI program and that they had both agreed never to use it. You know, even if one of them died, that was just a line they were never going to cross. And then one of them dies and the other one crosses that line, like very quickly, doesn't even wait. And the AI becomes one of the main characters of the show. Her name is Janet. She is British. She's very, very soft-spoken. She is the voice of reason, which begs the question, are robots really smarter than us? Should we start taking advice from AI chatbots? Because apparently she was right about everything. Everything she said came true. Should I keep this accent for the rest of the video? No. Listen, there's no consistent style across the show, okay? It bounces from being an independent investigative crime thriller to a very jarring and unfunny sitcom to Days of Our Lives. And I'm imagining that Days of Our Lives is a family drama where the drama is just not good. And if that's not what Days of Our Lives is, then imagine a show where there's a lot of family drama, okay? There's a lot of arguing and no one cares. Like, no one gives a fuck. No one asked them to be here. No one asked these characters to interact with each other. No one asked to see their backstories, these side plots, these side quests they go on. Listen, it's not me. It's the show, okay? The show works as a Frankenstein construction of several different stories we may have enjoyed watching unfold separately. Like someone hacked into a studio servers and they got the bits and pieces of several different scripts and then they just shoved all of them into ChatGPT and asked it to make it a story. And we got this. And it's a story. It's also interesting seeing how the critical reception of professional critics is comparing to normal, regular folk, such as you and myself. Because, I don't know, professional critics sometimes are on crack, and I think this is one of those cases where I agree more with the audience score. In fact, I would give it a lower score. It is... Nicole, are you kidding me, man? You need to leave! Sorry, that was so stupid. Go get yourself a drink and a snack and relax right the fuck now. And let's talk about Scarpetta. I even got myself a little mustache because Scarpetta is a character of Italian origin, even though they hired Nicole Kidman for the role. Don't question it. Kay Scarpetta is a chief medical officer in 1998 and 2026. And the casting choices for these two timelines, I'm gonna say it right now, are genius because she looks like she could be Nicole Kidman's daughter, and he is literally his son. And I don't know why, but the entire cast of 2026, that goes for Nicole Kidman, Bobby Cannavale, Jamie Lee Curtis, Ariana DeBose, they were all just deeply uncommitted. Simon Baker, it's like they didn't want to be on set. Like they were just holding back their acting abilities because, I mean, in this roster of actors, we got, what, 3 Academy Award winners? I don't see Academy Award winning performances anywhere. In 1998, she lives with Lucy, a 12-year-old girl that just so happens to be her niece. And that's because Lucy's mom, Dorothy, is addicted to getting married to losers and then abandoning her daughter to go party off on an island somewhere. Yes. And at work, Kay Scarpetta works very closely with Pete Marino. He is a detective and he is just awful. On all counts, this man is terrible and they're best friends, so you gotta put up with him the entire time. Rumor has it they want to do a season 2. And judging by how season 1 ends, I hope they don't. Enough. So it's 1998 and there's a series of murders happening. On murder number 4, Kay Scarpetta is called to the scene, and it's always women who are bound, raped, beaten, and then killed in horrific manners. The 4th victim is Lori Peterson, and her husband describes smelling a stench of maple, but like rotten. And that becomes an important detail because they are able to determine later that that is actually the odor emitted by a person with a very rare syndrome where their bodies aren't able to process certain enzymes. Detective Pete Marino is absolutely convinced the husband did it because he has the imagination of a door. And to help with the investigation, because this is the 4th murder and there's still no clues as to who may have committed them, the FBI sends an agent to help them, and his name is Wesley Benton. And as soon as Kay sees him, she melts. She sees that man, she's locked in, and that is what I want to sit on. And she does. In present time, Kay Scarpetta is married to Wesley Benton. And they have recently moved back to where they were in 1998 to live in Wesley Benton's family home. And it just so happens that they're living with Dorothy, Scarpetta's sister, and her husband, Pete Marino. Ooh, yes, Dorothy married Pete Marino. And living in a guest house is Lucy, who has just lost her wife in the past year and now spends day and night speaking to the AI chatbot of her wife. Yes, that's her. That's our little techie whiz robotics professional who made enough money at the age of 13 to never have to work again. So like, Lucy is a tech whiz. And if you don't believe me, look at how many screens she has in her office. That has to be tech whiz stuff. And the night before Scarpetta is sworn in as chief medical officer once again, she is actually called because they found the body of a woman by the railroad. A woman that was brutally murdered in exactly the same fashion as those murders back in 1998. So now there's a connection. They later identify the victim as being Gwen Haney, who used to work at Thor Labs, which unfortunately will become important for the retelling of this non-plot. A company who makes 3D printed biosynthetic human organs. Yes. And on the murder weapon used to bash Gwen Haney's head in, they find prints of Matt Peterson, the husband of the 4th victim back in 1998, which puts the fear of the devil in Kay and Pete because they're like, if we got the wrong man, you know what this means. Like, we can't have gotten the wrong man. And like, if that, like, something bad happened.
Is it second chance? Or am I just looking to fuck myself up again?
The most frustrating detail is that you get to the end and there is no way that the guy they got in 1998 was the wrong guy. Like, there's no way that it could have been the wrong guy. I can't even believe that they try to play it off as like a mystery when it really isn't, but we're gonna go with it. And that's episode 1. From here on out, it jumps from timeline to timeline, and people were clicking off after 1 episode, and I kind of understand why. Dorothy, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, wow, like, she's on the wrong show. Remember Glee? When Rachel Berry goes off to LA and makes that really bad sitcom, and then we actually watch the sitcom in like episode 1 of season 6, and it's like the most humiliating thing ever. It feels like Dorothy belongs on that show.
Hey, hi, it's me, Dottie. Wow.
The chemistry between Kay and her sister, it's not great. These are two Oscar-winning actresses. One is doing too much, and one is not doing enough. I love Nicole Kidman. I think she is truly one of the greatest actors of her generation, possibly any generation ever. She is a hard worker, and she always transforms herself. But Scarpetta feels like a caricature, like someone would play her off like this in an SNL sketch. Like, she comes off so serious, but in such a funny way.
You came all this way to tell me that. No, you can't do that. No, you need to go home.
So I laugh when Nicole Kidman is Scarpetta, and I don't know that that's the intention.
This is bad. This is fucking bad.
But I'm not blaming Nicole Kidman. I am blaming the script, and I'm guessing the directors, because the script is already bad. Like, the story, like, ignoring the writing or the dialogue or how scenes go from one to the other, the overall story, the overall plot, right? We're looking at the whole picture is garbage. It's garbage. Both timelines work on this idea that there's this whodunit investigation happening, right? In 1998, it's a serial killer who murders women in horrific ways, and they're trying to find a connection between all four. They have 3 white women and 1 black woman. That immediately throws their investigation into a disarray because they can't find a connection between these women. And that adds a real gripping element to an investigation set in 1998, where Scarpetta is the first woman to become the chief medical examiner of Virginia. And a lot of men are not happy about that in the office, right? She battles a lot of misogyny and a lot of attempts at sabotaging her career and putting in jeopardy her credibility. And that I enjoyed very much, because that felt a lot more real, even if the writing was still very and the 2026 timeline really struggles to find its footing, because I don't think there's like a focused story happening. We have a lot of side plots that we're juggling. Like, my favorite is when Dorothy starts bonding with Janet, the AI bot that her daughter married. So she never got to bond with her daughter-in-law while she was alive, but now that she's dead and has been turned into an AI, she decides to bond with her. And she loves it, up until when Janet nonchalantly says, "Oh yeah, Pete Marino, your husband, has always been in love with your sister, Scarpetta." And that sends her down a spiral of smoking weed and drinking alcohol and acting like the characters that she plays in Freaky Friday, you know? It's like the same thing, but with booze and drugs. And this idea that Scarpetta and Pete Marino are secretly in love with each other because they only trust each other, they're only happy when they're working together, they're always off doing something in the middle of the night or whatever, that really plays like a heavy role in this modern story, and it's just not believable, because first, there's no romantic chemistry at all between both characters, and I think that works for the story, because I don't think they're meant to be like secretly in love with each other. I think they're just meant to be like ride or dies, but the show does like hint very, very much so at several points that they are actually madly in love with each other, and they might actually just run away. Several points in the story, Pete Marino's like, you know, we could go. I can just reverse this car and we can start driving and never look back. She has a husband. She has a niece that she practically raised. You have a wife. But let's just let's just fuck off and die together. And then half of the other dramatic story is Lucy coming to terms with the death of her wife while she starts like flirting with this other cop. Her name is Blaze, and they have cute chemistry together. And I really enjoyed how they were able to have a queer character where her being a lesbian isn't the point of the story. It's her grieving the death of a partner. I think that is great, and I love to see it. But an AI chatbot, like, even when they bring queer characters into these shows, even when they give us representation, like, at what cost? At what cost? Like, make straight people go through these embarrassing things, okay? Like, and now that I think of it, the more we see AI, the more, no, yeah. You know what? No, you're right. No, I do believe it. Yeah, no, that does. Oh God. Sorry, I'm just having a realization that in my mind, it's so ridiculous that they would include this as a plot point, but then you look at real life and how many people are actually building relationships with their fucking ChatGPT accounts, and yeah, it makes sense. And then if that wasn't enough on the family drama front, there is also the side plot where Scarpetta's husband, Benton Wesley, might actually be a sociopath. There's a lot of red herrings spread out throughout the season that make you think, oh, this person's gonna be the killer, or that person's gonna be the killer, right? And normally in these TV shows, when you have like a murder mystery at the center of the story, the murderer tends to be a character that has been in the story the entire time. Like, which one of these characters that we're following did it? Not all of them, But this one does, because this one keeps dropping hints that several of the characters around them have like these unresolved questions that make you genuinely believe, yeah, that is a killer. For example, her husband. Her husband has a childhood lair where he sits on his dusty, rotten old armchair, and he fondles a page taken from a book of on sociopathy that his mom gave him when he was a kid. Yeah, that whole side plot. When he was a kid, his mom noticed that he had violent proclivities about him, right? So she gave him a book that explains everything about sociopaths and told him, "You're a sociopath. Read this book and learn how to blend in and how to control yourself." And he was like 11 or 12. And I don't think that you should. I don't think you should just walk up to your child who's got violent tendencies and be like, "Hey, you f***ing psycho, here's a book on how much of a f***ing psycho you are. Learn and read it, you killer." But she does, and it seems like he really internalizes that a lot. Like he really studies psychology to the point where he goes into psychology and he becomes a psychology expert for the FBI. Like he is the one who interviews serial killers and determines their motives and the reason why they're so violent in the first place. The call is coming from inside the house. But also when they reveal this piece of information in episode 6, I believe, we are led to believe that he is a killer who is just taking out his anger on random passerbys, and he's framing them as like these random murders, and that's it. The show goes to such lengths to try and convince us that it's someone from the cast that once the reveal comes, my jaw was on the fucking floor. I know that lying is a sin, but I'm not religious, so yeah. 1998, Kay Scarpetta, like I said, is dealing with a lot of misogyny. And throughout her investigation, someone starts messing with her evidence. First, she's hacked a couple times, and the district attorney and the governor try to use that as a reason to fire her, but she's like, actually, the victim called 911 and no one helped her, and if someone had, she wouldn't be dead. And if this got out, you two would lose your fucking jobs. So let's call it even, shall we? That was a serve. And Rosie McEwen, who plays Kay Scarpetta in the past, wow. Standout performance of the entire show. I could not believe it. She looked more like Nicole Kidman than Nicole Kidman. She was acting more like Nicole Kidman than it's such a good casting on the visual cues alone. But then the physicalities, I don't know if Rosie studied Nicole or if she just like hung out with her a lot or if they just like agreed on how to do it, but there were certain moments where she just looked like Nicole when she was in her early 30s. Like, wow. After getting hacked, someone mislabels the evidence, and that puts in jeopardy the entire chain of the investigation. And then, of course, you have public pressure to solve these murders because people are fucking scared. And instead of like actually helping to solve the murders, the governor and district attorney's answer is to just like try to sweep it under the rug as quickly as possible. You know, like we want this solved fast, not right. So if we have to like color outside the lines to do it, let's do it. Corruption. The thing that confounds me the most though, wow, what a statement, is Kay Scarpetta and Pete Marino's friendship. Listen up. Pete Marino is gross, just very, very misogynistic. And at times, like, it's infuriating. And it begs the question, why the fuck is Kay still friends with him? And I'm not complaining about the character. I believe that people like this exist. What I'm complaining about is the dynamic between Kay and Pete. I don't think it makes sense for who they are. They discover Lori Peterson may have left her room window unlocked, and Pete Marino says, well, that's why you die, because you choose comfort over safety. That's what gets you killed. Then he just like randomly refers to women as bitches for no discernible reason, not even when he's talking about any of them like in a derogatory way or in a gay way. It's just like, that's what they are. Yep. And Kay does offer some pushback at times, like she questions his logic and asks him not to call women that word.
Could you not refer to women as bitches?
But never truly enough for him to even like internalize what she's trying to tell him or like to understand why he's a pig. There's a different moment when he berates Kay's assistant, and he berates him to the point where he has to leave the room, like almost close to tears. And Kay's like, I'm gonna stand up for the people that work with me. And that's that. And nothing else comes of it, but Pete doesn't change. Like, Pete maintains this demeanor. In 1998, at some point, there's a fifth victim, and that victim just so happens to be Abby's sister. Abby is a journalist that's been hounding the cops and Kay Scarpetta for information. She writes for the paper, and Bill Boltz, the district attorney, doesn't like Abby because Abby keeps running stories in the press, making them look bad, like they haven't solved the crime, which makes no sense, you know, like be mad at the journalist reporting the story instead of the story not developing fast enough because you're useless at your job. Sure. So there's already this animosity between Abby and Bill Boltz that we see like earlier in the season. And then later, when Abby's sister is killed, Bill Boltz shows up at the house and she freaks the fuck out and kicks him out, like aggressively in front of all these cops. So Bill Boltz goes outside and tells Pete, oh yeah, she did that because a few weeks ago we went on a date, we slept together, and then I just kind of ghosted her, and now I guess she's gone crazy on me. You know how women are. And Pete's like, yeah, of course, man, of course. Inside, Abby tells Kay a very different story. She took him out for dinner as a thank you, as a professional courtesy for having worked on a story together. And then she blacked out. She was drugged and raped, and then he left in the middle of the night and told all of his friends that he had sex with her willingly and consensually. And that leads Kay and Pete to talk about it. And when Kay tells Pete that Bill drugged and Abby, Pete says, no, that's impossible. Obviously, that never happened. What was she wearing? Maybe she was dressed too sexy. And Kay's answer is, it doesn't matter what she was wearing because he roofied her. That takes premeditation. And Pete's response is, well, that's impossible. Bill is super attractive. Like, he could get any woman that he wants. Like, women are throwing themselves at him. That's a lie. That has to be a lie. He didn't do it. And Kay says that sexual assault isn't about having access to women's bodies. It's about having power and control over their bodies. So Pete retorts with, then why didn't she go to the police when that happened? And Kay says, well, because she feared no one would believe her, which you clearly just proved her point because you're reacting the way you're reacting. And it's like, it felt like writing for 10-year-olds. It felt very much like, let's hit all of the bullet points and let's show how these conversations go, and let's have a little mini educational moment, which really wasn't educational at all because Kay just questions him a couple times, offers a bit of pushback, but I don't know, like she seems annoyed that he made those comments, but then she just remains his friend and his like most trusted confidant. My problem is with like how the story frames Kay Scarpetta having to fight misogyny in the workplace, but then cut to her best friend and he's like one of the worst, and you're still hanging out with him all buddy buddies. Like, what gives, Kay? Like, what gives? Hello. And the fact that they stay best friends for 28 years, like, okay, sure. Sure. Then we have the 3D printed organs that fall from the sky. Okay, well, that's in 2026. At one point, Kay is talking to Lucy in front of Janet, the AI, and mentions this park. And Janet's like, oh, be careful with that park. It's really living up to its name. Kay's like, wait, what do you mean? Janet's like, oh, another woman was found dead there. The AI solves the case, guys. If it wasn't for the AI noticing this connection, then Kay Scarpetta would have never like had the investigation that she has. Because the woman that was found dead, turns out, was ruled an accident. She tripped, fell, hit her head, and then drowned by the river. But when analyzing the running trail and where she died, it seems very unlikely that she would have ended up there. So foul play must have been at hand. Not only that, but she had head injuries that are inconsistent with the type of fall that they tried to frame it as. But before we even get to the dead jogger, there's something happens. Organs start raining from the sky. I am not joking. There's a crash. Turns out Thor Labs had a biomedical lab to 3D print biosynthetic human organs in orbit because the low gravitation optimizes growth. There's a sentence you don't say every day, huh? Suddenly, the gravitational lab falls from space. Inside are 2 dead astronauts and a third missing, who later lands safely in Russia on an escape pod. So they determined that the third astronaut must have shot the 2 astronauts that were inside of this lab and then escaped, and Gwen Haney was helping him and then got killed to tie up loose ends. It's a bunch of nonsense that doesn't really matter. Like, it does nothing for the story other than create a rift between Kay Scarpetta and her husband, Wesley Benton. Because what I forgot to tell you in this confusing story, is that when Kay Scarpetta was investigating Gwen Haney and her missing boyfriend and now the dead jogger, her husband was actually interrogating Gwen Haney's missing boyfriend, Jinx, because he was already investigating them for selling secrets to Russians. Biomedical, biotech secrets. This fucking side plot. Ooh. Where did we turn and exit Scarpetta and enter the X-Files? No, not the X-Files. Something less exciting than that. All this to say, he had key information that could have helped Kay Scarpetta in her investigation. Unfortunately, due to the sensitive nature of his job, he couldn't divulge any information, and she's mad at him. She's so mad that she kicks him out of their room, forces him to sleep somewhere else, and that's when he sleeps in his childhood lair, which is when we find out that he's actually a sociopath. But then it's like Kay Scarpetta is a hypocrite because she's so angry that he didn't tell her this piece of information related to his work. But then she's also holding a massive fucking secret from the past, which she refuses to tell him. And the secret is so dumb. It comes into play in episode 6, and it's when Dorothy has an argument with Wesley Benton and insinuates that not only is Pete in love with Kay, but this case that they're investigating, Gwen Haney and the jogger, is because it relates to her very first case. The first case that made her career. And Dorothy says that there's a deep, dark secret, something that they are afraid might come out because of this investigation. And when Wesley asks Kay what it is, Kay refuses to say. She's like, there's nothing. You are being crazy. So let's get to the reveals, shall we? 1998, and in conversation with Dorothy, her sister, Kay realizes that the killer wasn't picking these women based on what they look like. He was picking them based on what they sound like because Dorothy spoke to the mother of the black victim and said on the phone, "Oh, you don't sound black." And that's it.
Forgive me, but you don't sound black. Did your sister sound like you?
Wow, what a way to solve a crime, because this then leads them to the realization that the killer must work during the night, either in deliveries or maybe emergency services, which then leads Kay to figure out that the 911 operator spoke to all of the victims. So it was someone that works in the 911 like offices, you know, the people that take your call when you need help. Well, he heard these women's voices, loved it, and then just went to their homes and attacked them and killed them. She finds that out and then texts Pete the address of the killer because she found his name and everything. And you're here thinking, wait a minute, where? It's not Bill Boltz, the guy who Abby, who was watching her home at night? No, that was a red herring. It's actually just a random 911 operator. So Kay Scarpetta goes to the address and waits for Pete, but then she hears a woman screaming inside. So she runs inside, only to be caught by the killer who starts attacking her, strangling her, and she realizes that the screaming is coming from a VCR. It's a recording of a past victim. So she grabs a piece of like ceramic or glass and she stabs him in the neck. And that's when Pete Marino comes in. He sees that she killed him and she's not supposed to be there. So he shoots the guy in the throat 3 times to cover up the slice that she left in there, and then tells her to leave. Takes the fall for the killing and says that it was all Scarpetta. She's the one who identified the guy. And then Pete showed up, heard a woman screaming, was attacked, had to defend himself, and kill the guy in self-defense. And now they caught the killer. And no one is mad at Pete because he did effectively kill a serial killer who was torturing women, but Kay Scarpetta is just, she feels really guilty. She's racked with guilt. She can't handle it. She wants to tell the truth, but Pete's like, no, don't do it. That would be stupid. So she goes home, has a mentee breakdown, and confesses it all to her sister, which is why her sister then insinuated to Wesley 28 years later that there's a deep, dark secret, knowing full well the secret was that her sister had to defend herself against a serial killer. And Kay promises herself never to tell Wesley Benton the truth. Mind you, they hook up during the season, and he's married in 1998. So he's like cheating on his wife. He's got daughters. He never tells her. Lucy has to see him with his wife and daughters at the cinema. But she promises herself never to tell him. So like they're both liars in their own way. I don't know why this secret was such like a big deal, but that was it. Like it's not even someone from the cast. It's not even the district attorney. It's no one. that matters. So then jump to 2026, and everyone is like, okay, case closed. It was the astronaut. It was all like the selling of secrets to the Russians. But Kay's like, there's a connection between these women. I know it. So they exhume Cammie's body, and Kay finds more skin grafts, the same ones that Gwen had. But before she can do anything with it, Pete is arrested because he assaulted Matt Peterson, thinking that he was the killer. And Kay is fired because she ordered the exhumation of a body, and because this dead jogger was actually a cover-up by Dr. Reddy. Dr. Reddy is this butthurt guy who was mad that he didn't get the job that she did in 1998, and now he's her boss, and he's just like a gross man. And he tried to cover up the death because he was up for re-election or something, and he wanted to paint this town as being safer than it is. So he waltzed into the room while they were performing the autopsy, and in front of all of his FBI buddies was like, "This was an accident, wasn't it, woman? Yes, it was. Case closed." And because he's a man and because he has all this power and he intimidates this woman that's working, that's like actually performing the autopsy, she has no choice but to rule it as an accident. Once again, tapping into these like misogyny in the workplace topics, but never really fleshing them out. So in all of this, we still don't have a killer. And then it all comes to a very weird conclusion. So first of all, Lucy still can't get over her dead wife, even though her dead AI wife told Kay that she was a program. They agreed never to use it, even if one of them died, and then she just went ahead and used it anyway. So somehow the Janet gets deleted. We don't see who it was. We don't see how it happened. All we know is that Lucy is angry at everyone, especially when Kay told her, you need to move out. You need to move on with your life a little bit. So Lucy's answer to that is she goes to Matt Peterson, who's now a cult leader, and she's there. Okay. Dorothy gives Pete an ultimatum, me or my sister, and Pete has to go with her to a hotel room. Wesley Benton asks Kay for a divorce because he says that he's really dark and she doesn't really know him. And she's like, no, I love you. I don't care how dangerous you think you are. I love you. I love you. And he's like, no, you don't. I want a divorce. It's like she was literally telling you, I don't care if you're crazy. I don't care if you're dangerous and if you like violence. I love you, man. Come on, let's make it work. And he's like, no. I want a divorce. I am a sick individual who cannot be trusted with you anymore. I've spent the last 28 years hiding my true self from you, but not anymore. I must go. And he goes to his partner's trailer. So Kay Scarpetta is left all alone in her home, you see. And that's when we find out who the killer is. And the killer is this random cop that was the first on the scene back in 1998. At Laurie's house. That was the first time that he saw a dead body, and he became fascinated with them. So jump to 2026, 28 years later, and he killed first Cammie, and that was messy, and he admits it. But then with Gwen, he really did a good job, and he did it because he wanted to impress the best. He wanted to impress Kay Scarpetta. The funniest thing is that I think his was the very first voice we hear at the very beginning of the very first episode, and he is the second human that shows up on screen of the very first episode. So it's like, wow, you really blink it and you'll miss it. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, who cares? Who is this man? Why? What? So you see, it's not the husband who's a sociopath. It wasn't the district attorney who had all to gain. It wasn't Maggie who was selling secrets to Dr. Reddy. It wasn't even Dr. Reddy who was covering up these murders to make himself look better. It was a cop who was an admirer of Kay Scarpetta. And then he attacks her because I guess she has to die as well. But Kay Scarpetta, ooh, Nicole Kidman really punched in this last episode. She grabs a baseball bat and she knocks him down the stairs and then just bashes his skull in over and over, like absolutely bludgeons his cranium in. There's no more shape by the time she's done. And then someone opens the door. She turns to the door, horrified, and the season ends. See, I don't know why. I've been sat here for the past 5 minutes thinking of like a way to wrap it up. And I don't know how. Not everything is bad, but even the good things have bad things about them, right? Even the 1998 like story arc had some really questionable writing, like felt like it was aimed at 10-year-olds who need to hear the lesson in school, like in theater, you know, like don't smoke. And then the modern story, I don't know. No one clocked in to work really up until like episode 8, maybe. I just hope Nicole knows that she doesn't have to just do a bad show every year. She can just chill. She's a hardworking professional. I love that about her. Don't love the show. I also saw that someone said that in the novel, there isn't like this 2 timeline split back and forth between the 2 cases. And if that's true, if this doesn't happen in the novels, then what the hell were they thinking? Also, Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lee Curtis are both credited as executive producers. Choices. And you know what? If you're gonna give us Nicole Kidman in one of these roles and you're gonna have her play it this seriously, at least give her a better wig. Like a more extravagant hairdo. But what they do to Lucy is truly just homophobic. Like borderline racist even. This is her wedding day. These people are filthy rich, okay? What is that? Come on! No! That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked that. If you did, make sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That'd be rude. I even did a mustache. Look at this. Look at this. I'm living up to my Portuguese heritage, right? My Portuguese blood coursing through my veins. Yeah. So with all that said, what did you think of Scarpetta? Scarpetta. Thank you. And until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. Bye, guys.